much for taking off time from your very tight schedule to talk to the Post newspaper.
I thank you and the Post, your very popular newspaper, for the privilege of this interview, Mr. Yerima Kinin-Som. I am pleased to share with your readers my view on matters concerning our country.
You are one of the frontline federalists in the ongoing Anglophone crisis that has been rocking this country now for the past 6 years. Some observers hold that you are going back to your vomit by virtue of your stance, given that you belong to the Elat Munzu and Hon triple fraternity that declared the zero option. That is the struggle for Southern Cameroon's independence when the BR regime didn't heed your call for a return to federation. What is your reaction to this accusation?
Am I going back to my vomit, as you put it? No, I am not. I'm a federalist, always have been a federalist, and remain a federalist. This should be clearly understood. You say that the BR regime didn't heed our call for a return to federation. Does this make federalism or federation a bad option that we should not pursue? The BR regime may not like federation or federalism for its own selfish interests. Under a federal system, a significant degree of power will be removed from its hands. This regime prefers to monopolize power under a so-called decentralized unitary state, where Yaoundé will continue to control everything in all regions through unelected governors, senior divisional officers, and divisional officers. Should that make us turn away from federalism? My answer is no. Note that the BR regime has refused to heed the call to comply with Article 66 of our country's constitution that requires the President of the Republic and other clearly designated state officials to declare their assets when they take and leave office. Does this mean that in the fight against corruption, the obligation to declare assets under Article 66 of the Constitution is not good for our country, or that we should turn away from Article 66 of the Constitution? For decades, the BR regime has refused to heed the call to establish a truly independent electoral commission. Does this mean that we should turn away from our demand for an independent electoral commission as a necessary institution for democracy in our country? The BR regime has refused to heed the people's demand for a truly impartial and independent judiciary. Should we stop demanding an impartial and independent judiciary as the foundation of a good justice system in our country? We could cite many examples. Here is the thing, Yerima. The merits and benefits of federalism as a system of government for Cameroon do not depend upon its acceptance by the BR regime. Cameroonians should not worry whether the BR regime pays heed to the call for a return to federation or not. They should rather ask whether federalism can enable us to address the governance challenges facing our country today. If the people want a federal system of government, they will, in the long run, get a federal system of government. For my part, I believe very strongly that federalism is best for the peaceful governance of Cameroon, a country that is so complex and so diverse, but which, despite its complexity and diversity, must remain united.
Tribalism that we have, nepotism, all forms of ills, and we say that we want to live together. It's a difficult exercise, and that's why I said I do not envy you. I wish you had a lot more powers. Mr. Chairman, the second point has to do with who is a secessionist. When we get to know who a secessionist is, then we'll get to know who the secessionist is. Seceding from what? From a whole. Means you're part of something. And then you want to break away. If you do not recognize me as a part of a whole, then don't dare you call me a secessionist. The history of Cameroon does not start with German Cameroon. The history of Cameroon does not start with West Cameroon, as it then was, and La République du Cameroon. German Cameroon covered a lot bigger territory, included even northern Cameroons today, part of Nigeria, included parts of Chad, parts of the Central African Republic, parts of the Congo, parts of Gabon. Are we going to go out tomorrow to reclaim those parts of German Cameroon simply in the name of one and indivisible Cameroon?
There has been pent-up anger against your position. You have had avalanche of criticisms from left, right, and center, especially from the Separatists.
Mr. Kinninsom, when you have to address a matter as serious, complex, and important as the Anglophone problem in Cameroon, don't approach it with anger, violence, and lies. Otherwise, you are not likely to find a suitable solution. Unfortunately, most of the people whom you say have pent-up anger against me, especially among the separatists, are driven by just that: anger, violence, lies. I am not infallible. My position could be a wrong one. In that case, those who criticize me from, as you put it, left, right, and center should show where I am wrong. None of what these people say against me consists of cogent arguments against the views that I express based on historical facts, our contemporary realities, and relevant provisions of domestic and international law. Let me repeat, I'm not infallible. But honestly, I have no time for people who, instead of confronting my arguments with counter-arguments, resort to anger, violence, lies, insult, verbal and physical threats, bullying, and denigration on social media.
I must confess, we do not envy you because you have a very, very difficult mission. We wonder if at all you're going to achieve your goals or the mission set up for you. Pluralism, multiculturalism, vivre ensemble. Mr. Chairman, we don't have any problem with bilingualism. We don't have any problem with multiculturalism. We don't, for Christ's sake. We have a problem with vivre ensemble. Not vivre ensemble in the sense of eating a chou or eating ndole or wearing the brother or wearing the Northwest gala. No, that's not the problem. The problem is one of recognition. The Anglophone problem is what we have before us. Can you address it like the Anglophone problem? Let us stop deceiving ourselves in this country, where a people freely came to meet their brothers who were already independent, so that we could form one country and see how we could forge ahead to leave a better place for our children to come. But what do we have? One of annexation, assimilation, where there's so much ignorance on the history of this country, where there's so much arrogance on the part of a few who are chopping fat on the resources of this country, where there's marginalization, where there is arrogance, I dare say, total arrogance, which is unacceptable. Until we change our ways, there is no way forward for us together.
Why do you think that federation is the best way out of the Anglophone crisis?
Yarima, federation is clearly the best way out of this crisis. Ask yourself these three questions about Cameroon. How did this country come about? How is it composed? What or how has it evolved since its origin? The Cameroon that you and I live in today owes its origin directly to the choice made by the overwhelming majority of Southern Cameroonians voting at the United Nations organized plebiscite of 11th February 1961 for their territory to achieve independence by joining the independent Republic of Cameroon rather than the independent Federation of Nigeria, creating a new country, the Federal Republic of Cameroon, with effect from the 1st of October 1961. No Cameroonian of good faith and sound mind can deny this simple historical fact. However, prior to coming together, the two territories of the British Southern Cameroons and the Republic of Cameroon explicitly agreed that the new country they were about to form should be a federation comprising two federated states of equal status. Each was to conduct its affairs according to the system of government bequeathed to it by its colonial experience. That, too, is a simple historical fact that no Cameroonian of good faith and sound mind can deny. This fundamental agreement was broken when the country switched from a federation to a unitary state in 1972. Since then, one side has sought to assimilate the other, while the other has steadfastly resisted assimilation. That is the root cause of the ongoing crisis in the Northwest and Southwest regions. It is the third simple historical fact that no Cameroonian of good faith and sound mind can deny. In the subsequent evolution of the country, Cameroonians of all regions have come to cherish and to aspire to genuine autonomy for their region. They want each region to run its affairs. This is another fact that no Cameroonian of good faith and sound mind can deny. In light of these facts, the government's offer of a decentralized unitary state with the so-called special status for the two English-speaking regions is a recipe for continuing the domination, marginalization, assimilation, and subjugation of Anglophone Cameroonians. On the other hand, separation as advocated by the armed groups that are fighting against the government is a recipe for breaking up the Cameroon that was constituted through unification in 1961. How can we avoid the breakup of Cameroon while also ending the domination, marginalization, assimilation, and subjugation of Anglophone Cameroonians? It is by re-establishing the federation. A new federation would grant full autonomy to each region, devolve adequate powers to it, and provide it the revenue that it needs to conduct its affairs and deliver services to its inhabitants. It will keep Cameroon united and prevent its breakup into two or more separate independent states. It would end the domination, marginalization, assimilation, subjugation, and second-class citizen status of Anglophone Cameroonians in this country. It would respond to the aspiration of Cameroonians of all regions for the autonomy of their region. You can see, Mr. Kininsom, that keeping sentiment, lies, and greed aside, federation is, without doubt, the best option for this strife-torn country.
A terrorist, well, ordinarily speaking, I don't need to go to the dictionary, someone who terrorizes others. There are various forms of terrorism in this country. We know today, not just that I was so glad the other day on the 20th of May watching television when I saw sons of terrorists at the Unity Palace. The sons of Umnyobe and NS Wandi, who yesterday were terrorists by the definition of the government of the day. And who today have been rehabilitated. But what happened to them and to their fathers? They were hanged, beheaded. There was a lot of blood. As we are seeing today, we will call freedom fighters terrorists. But we forget to know that the greatest terrorists today in this country, thank God you said we can say what we said, what we like or what we know without any fear of repression. The greatest terrorist today in this country is the state. It is the state.
Despite your advocacy for a return to federation, especially the pre-1972 federal status of the country, the Yaoundé regime has maintained that it would not entertain any discussions on a possible change in the form of state. What do you intend to do in order to talk them out of this conservative and adamant position? What do you intend to do to turn things around?
Yarema, my friend, my advocacy for a return to federation is not aimed primarily at the Yaoundé regime. It is aimed first and foremost at the Cameroonian people in all regions. History teaches us that all over the world, those who are in power prefer the status quo after spending years, in some cases decades, as in Cameroon, putting in place regimes that serve their interest, often to the detriment of the population for whom they care very little. Consequently, they tend to resist all calls for change for fear of losing power and their grip on society. People's power alone can lead them to implement necessary reforms. The advantages of the new federal system that we advocate are so obvious and overwhelming that the government, whether under this regime or a future one, ought to agree willingly to re-establish federalism in Cameroon. If it doesn't, the population of the 10 regions will constrain it towards acceptance through various acts of peaceful but effective resistance. There are ways of organizing this type of resistance. If necessary, Cameroonians will apply them. I am convinced that the prospect of organized civil resistance in all regions of Cameroon will compel the Yaoundé regime to abandon its obstinate and unreasonable rejection of calls to change the form of the state in the general interest of our nation. I believe that there is, in the majority of Cameroonians, latent support for the re-establishment of federalism in the new form that we advocate.
Tomorrow, to reclaim those parts of German Cameroon, simply in the name of one and indivisible Cameroon? Nope, it's not possible. It is a spirit. One and indivisible has to be a spirit. You cannot force it by decree, no matter what kind of decree you sign. And when you see the Anglophones, I put it this way, the Anglophone problems, even though you people like to talk of the problems of the Northwest and the Southwest, it is not the problems in the Northwest and in the Southwest. It's the Anglophone problem in this country. We should be honest enough to recognize it, to accept it, and to treat it as such. When you see the Anglophone problem, you must ask yourselves the question, can you really stop it just by maybe this commission coming out? It's a difficult mission. No. The Anglophone problem has to do with a spirit. It is intangible. You cannot see it, you cannot touch it, but the Anglophoneness is there in every Anglophone. With your permission, to my dear brothers and friends, so many of you up here, I know you, but I want to let you know that all the Anglophones up here, sitting on this table, you are with us in spirit.
Soldiers have been accused of extrajudicial killings and the burning of houses in what looks like a collective punishment against Anglophones in this country in the Northwest and Southwest regions. What legal name do you give these crimes?
Extrajudicial killing is homicide, which is the act of unlawfully killing another human being. In our domestic criminal law, a person who unlawfully kills another can be prosecuted and punished for manslaughter, murder, or aggravated murder. Also, in our law, the burning of houses is punishable as arson. So, soldiers who commit the acts you've mentioned could be prosecuted before Cameroonian criminal courts for manslaughter, murder, aggravated murder, or arson. When committed against whole communities, such as the Anglophones in the Northwest and Southwest regions of this country, extrajudicial killings, the burning of homes, and similar atrocities could, depending on the facts and the circumstances, constitute crimes against humanity and war crimes. Since 1998, the perpetrators of such acts are liable to prosecution for crimes against humanity in accordance with the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court that sits permanently at The Hague in the Netherlands. In the context of the ongoing crisis in the southwest and northwest regions of Cameroon, these atrocities are taking place within the framework of a non-international armed conflict. As such, they constitute war crimes which are punishable by Article 3 common to the 1949 Geneva Conventions. In application of this article, persons who commit these acts could be prosecuted and punished before the International Criminal Court.
State terrorism is going beyond bounds. It is going beyond bounds. You kill innocent civilians, unarmed civilians. You raise our villages from existence. You sign decrees that people should move out of their homes and go over to where they feel safe. People have to move to the forest. And when people stand up to fight for their rights, to fight for their recognition as citizens of this country, you term them as terrorists. When you term them as terrorists and you send out soldiers with guns behind them, what do you expect? These soldiers are trained to kill. They will kill those innocent people. Because, and they're killing, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. They're killing because you have sent them out to go and kill. They know how to take instructions. When they take instructions, because you have labeled our children, our brothers, our fathers as terrorists, and then you want to say, oh no, you are not part of that kind of carnage. No, you are. And you'll be held squarely responsible for it. I am sorry, those of you, who from far and near think you might not have, or who directly know they have something to do with it, you will have to answer to history.
How would you qualify the exactions of some separatist fighters against the civilians they claim to protect?
Separatist fighters who commit exactions against civilians are punishable in the same manner as government forces under both domestic and international criminal law. These exactions could constitute war crimes and crimes against humanity, as discussed in my answer to your last question. Therefore, separatist fighters committing such acts should know that they expose themselves to prosecution and punishment before Cameroonian criminal courts for offenses against the Cameroonian Penal Code and before the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity and war crimes in the same manner and to the same extent as government forces.
You will have to answer to history. Terrorism, what I see, I cannot go to my village. Women in the village today have burnt their farms, have worked their farms. Soldiers come and cut down their crops. Women cannot go to weed their farms. What higher form of state terrorism can we expect? What higher form? And we say that the people are terrorists. There are various forms of terrorism. The amount of money we are spending to check terrorism, to kill people, do we know what that money would have done if it was to do the Bamenda Ring Road that maybe you people promised us? When I say you people, you must excuse me, but you are members of government and you're people of government, so you've come before us. You promised us this road more than 30 years back, and nothing has been done about it. But people should just sit and fold their arms. The amount of corruption we have in this country today. How many people are dying as a result of corruption? A lot more people are dying from corruption than terrorism. A lot more.
Dr. Simon Munzu, you seem to totally disagree with those who say that government forces are committing genocide in Ambazonia. What is your grasp with this claim?
What you mean is those who say that government forces are committing genocide in the former southern Cameroons or in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. There is no place called Ambazonia. Yerima, let's be clear. The crime of genocide is not defined by public opinion. It is not defined, it is defined by international criminal law. When you are a lawyer, as I am, you don't accept that genocide exists just because lay popular opinion claims that it exists. You accept the existence of genocide when the situation presents all the ingredients of the crime of genocide as defined by international criminal law. The general public tends to consider any killing of many people as genocide. However, your readers should know that genocide is a peculiar international crime that is defined in very specific terms by a particular international legal instrument commonly called the Genocide Convention. Under this convention, the crime of genocide requires not only that certain physical acts are committed against the victims, but also that they are committed with a specific intent. The specific intent must be to destroy a targeted group partly or totally. In the case of the Anglophones in Cameroon, for there to be genocide, it has to be proved that any acts that are alleged to have been committed were inflicted upon any number of Anglophones with the specific intent of partially or totally destroying Anglophone Cameroonians as a group. This is a legal requirement. It does not depend on my opinion or your opinion or the opinion of any other person or group. The question as to whether genocide has been or is being committed in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon was hotly debated on social media last week. I participated in that debate, expressing the view that it would be difficult, not impossible, I didn't say it was impossible, but that it would be difficult to prove before a court of law that the Yaoundé regime intended specifically to destroy Anglophone Cameroonians as a group, partially or totally, as required by the definition of genocide in international criminal law. This is because Anglophones who have been living for decades in the 8 Francophone regions of Cameroon have so far not been targeted as a group since the current crisis began in 2016. At the same time, Anglophones fleeing the armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions have sought refuge in the 8 Francophone regions that have welcomed them. These are verifiable facts. My point was that on these facts, those who claim that genocide is going on in Cameroon would find it difficult to prove specific intent to destroy Anglophone Cameroonians as a group. That is all I said. My opponents in the social media debate argued that the intent to destroy Anglophones as a group could be inferred from the atrocity acts that have been committed against some of them. Fair enough. This meant that as commonly happens on questions of law among lawyers, two opposing viewpoints exist on this legal issue. A day will probably come when a court in Cameroon or at the international level will rule that one of these viewpoints is right while the other is wrong. While we are still waiting for that day, my opponents, including a lawyer who practices before the International Criminal Court and might therefore be expected to understand the crucial legal point that I was making, were quick to accuse me of being a genocide denier and an apologist for genocide, which they claim is taking place in the southwest and northwest regions. This is insane, but not surprising. The separatists do that all the time. Whenever they are unable to come up with a factual or legal argument to counter any of my contentions, they resort to personal attack. It's shameful and regrettable. When I take the government to task for the atrocities being committed in the southwest and northwest regions by its forces, the Yaoundé regime labels me as an apologist of secession, thus lumping me with separatists. When I challenge separatists to prove the existence of a major ingredient required by international criminal law to establish the crime of genocide, they label me as an apologist for genocide and lump me with the Yaoundé regime. That is how intolerant the Yaoundé regime and separatists have become. Since November 2017, mass atrocities have been committed against civilians by both sides to the armed conflict that is going on in the southwest and northwest regions of Cameroon. People have been arbitrarily executed.
Problem in this country. We should be honest enough to recognize it, to accept it, and to treat it as such. When you see the Anglophone problem, you must ask yourselves the question, can you really stop it just by maybe this commission coming out? It's a difficult mission. No. The Anglophone problem has to do with a spirit. It is intangible. You cannot see it, you cannot touch it, but the Anglophoneness is there in every Anglophone. With your permission, to my dear brothers and friends, so many of you up here, I know you, but I want to let you know that all the Anglophones up here, sitting on this table, you are with us in spirit.